Hello, everyone. I just thought I'd jump in. We are maybe about 30 seconds too early, and we wanted to make sure everyone had a chance to arrive. So Wasn't that a wonderful concert with Karen tonight? Oh my gosh, as always, Karen and friends. So I'm just going to schmooze until I see that 6 o'clock mark here Pacific time. um, well, welcome. I'm glad you found us. Here we are, 6 o'clock, right on time. I'm Darlene Hamilton, and we are the Historical Tea and Dance Society. Let me, how's that? Is that a better setting for everyone? Did that change things or just for me? I don't know. Anyway, that tune that you were listening to was Argos Inn. The composer is Rachel Bell. The band, Old World Charm School. The musicians, Karen Axelrod on piano, Susan Kevra on clarinet, Rachel Bell on accordion. The CD is Tone Chamber. Where can you buy it? You can buy it on Rachel's website. We are posting the links for that. So yes, many of the things you will be hearing tonight, you can get there. As I already said, we are the Historical Tea and Dance Society, and let me introduce you to my team. Lindsay Verbal is assisting with the program. I could not do it without her. Everyone knows and loves her. Thank you, Lindsay. And she's handling media and our attendee questions and many other things in the background. On Zoom, we have Renee Turner. She's monitoring for questions and posting the links. Hi. And on Facebook Live, we have Larry Hansen monitoring the chat box for questions and posting there. Thank you, my wonderful team. And in the background, we have other people working with us. Linda Nelson, Reed Wilson, Kara King, and a couple of standbys just in case. So thank you. Big shout out to my team. I do want to say, feel free to post your questions in the chat boxes on both platforms. We love the questions. I think by now you probably know where those chat boxes are. So you can find them. Whatever we don't get to during the web chat, which sometimes we don't, come into the after talk. We post it at the end, and we post it on our Facebook Friends page, the Historical Tea and Dance Society Friends, or you got it in your email. So, and once again, let me give a big shout out to Karen Axelrod for her fabulous concert. Yay! We love it. It's such a wonderful way to start the evening. So thank you, thank you. And I think she might be joining us tonight. So not joining us as a guest, but joining us in the audience. So we're happy you're here. We're happy you're all here. Let me go into a biography about Rachel Bell and Susan Kevra. We've got several different points. Rachel Bell is a musician, composer, and teacher. Susan Kevra is a musician, caller, and singer. Susan on clarinet and Rachel on accordion are 2/3 of the band Old World Charm School, the final third being the great Karen Axelrod. Rachel draws her musical inspirations from Celtic, French, English, and Quebecois traditions, and then creates striking tunes which have been used by choreographers like Gary Rudman, Susan and Tom Amici, and of course Susan. As well as choreographing dances, Susan travels the country and sometimes the globe, teaching contras, squares, French dancing, English country dancing. During this pandemic, Rachel teaches Zoom lessons and workshops. She plays virtual gigs, and she even manages to record. Susan is a professor of French and American Studies at Vanderbilt University, where she teaches a class called American Social History through Dance, which we'll hear a little bit more of later on. So let me introduce, welcome to Rachel Bell and Susan Kevra. We're so happy you're here, our very first doubleheader. Yay. And this is going to be an interesting night because if you were listening to Karen's concert, she was speculating, how is this going to happen? Well, we're going to bounce back and forth a little bit, and then they're going to be together. So for the first one, thing one, we're going to talk to Susan, and thing one, I have to look at this to read it. How a kid from Jersey who grew up in the disco era found her way to English country dancing. The things are getting longer. So we are going to let you go ahead and tell us about that.
Yeah, I was a little bit too young to get on the disco bandwagon. But I grew up in New Jersey, and I guess my first steps towards becoming an English country dance musician and caller began as a result of playing the clarinet. I started playing when I was in fourth grade, and my twin sister and I, aren't they lovely with their Dorothy Hamill haircuts? This must have been like sixth grade, something like that. And our little dresses that we made ourselves. We were very serious classical musicians, and were part of the marching band and concert bands and all-state bands, and studied at the Manhattan School of Music prep division when we were in high school, our senior year in high school. Um, I actually, in some ways, shelved my music career for a while. I went to Oberlin, but I ended up not majoring in music. I ended up majoring in French. And that explains in part my interest in French dancing. And I think the reason why Rachel and I ultimately got together was because of that. Um, we could have tonight, Rachel could spend a good hour talking about her life as a dance musician, as a teacher. I could spend an hour talking about my career as a contra dance and square dance and English country dance caller and as a musician. But what we're mostly going to do tonight is focus on this joint activity that we have, which is collaborating on me writing dances to Rachel's amazing tunes. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about when I really started to dip my toes into the dance world. I was studying at the University of Michigan, doing my master's degree, and that's when I really started contra dancing. And it was an incredible romance. I just couldn't get enough of it. It was a great way for me to let go of all of the rigors of being a graduate student. So I danced whenever I could. My introduction to English dancing was at the contra dances in Ann Arbor. And to be totally honest with you, at that time, it felt to me like it was dance medicine that I didn't want to have. And it was in large part because they would try to, at a contra dance, throw in a couple English dances. And it was mostly old time musicians who were playing for the dances. And so the music wasn't right and the spirit of it wasn't right. And I wasn't ready for it. I was, 20 something years old, and I just wanted a contra dance. But somebody did take me to a Bare Necessities workshop in Cleveland, my second year in graduate school. And that was it for me. I felt like I have found English dancing and I love it. And it has always for me been about the music. Music is so important. And so that very much informs my choreography. It also informs what I love about particular dances. My first attempts at playing for English were in my living room in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It turned out that Barbara Greenberg was living in Ann Arbor for a short period, and she had actually played music with my twin sister in Princeton. And so we got together, and she was, I'm sure, very patient with me. And when she asked me to play tunes, she was picking all these clarinet friendly tunes in keys that I could easily sight read or transpose. Hole in the Wall, I think, may have been the very first tune that I ever played on clarinet. So I owe Barbara a debt of gratitude for that. After I finished my master's degree, moved to Western Massachusetts and started a PhD program. At that point, it was really hard for me to have my focus be singularly on graduate studies, because there I was in the Pioneer Valley with all kinds of opportunities to go to great dances and to become a dance caller and a dance musician. And I did that in part because the Monday night Amherst dance used to be half English and half American, and it was an open mic session. And Paul Eric Smith was always so generous. Whenever I showed up, he would just say, "You want to call a dance? Here's the mic. Call call a dance. And I'd say, well, maybe I'll call one. And he'd say, you call two. So he was very encouraging, and people, the Caners were really encouraging in that regard. And a couple years later, I formed a band called Pleasures of the Town, and we started a monthly series in Amherst. So for that, I was a musician. I wasn't calling English for that, but I would get hired out to call for other English events. And just to wrap up this little section of this thing, for me, I feel like my love right now is honestly a little bit more pointed towards English dancing than contra dancing and the square dancing, and I think it has to do in part with the choreographies I've been doing and working with Rachel, and having opportunities to be able to do both things that I love, call dances and also play for them. So it's always a treat for me when I'm at different camps where I get to do both of those things. And a final plug for the Nashville Country Dancers. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and we have a great series here that is once a month to live music on Sundays when there's not a pandemic going on. And after a number of years casting about trying to find a band to play with locally, I finally the planets aligned. I have this great group that I play with of two young musicians, and it felt like we were just starting to take off, and then the pandemic happened. But hopefully we will be picking up on that before too long. There you have it. Over to Rachel.
That was great. And yes, hopefully so. Everything will come back to normal quickly. I think we're all primed for that. All right, so we're going to go on to thing number 2 with Rachel, which is how a kid from rural Pennsylvania who grew up playing classical music and church music on piano fell in love with accordion and English country dancing. I like the title.
It's a it's a long and complicated story. So it's a long title. No, I feel like uh, finding the accordion and finding dancing was kind of almost an accident, especially accordion. I really started playing the accordion by accident, and it's just led to all of the good things in my life. And it's kind of amazing to like, this was really fun because it was a fun way to look back and think about like kind of the sequence of how all this stuff happened. So I grew up in a little town called Shingle House, Pennsylvania, the western northern part of Pennsylvania, very rural place. And I just was totally focused on piano and was playing classical and church music. And then as a teenager, I ended up hearing a CD of some folk music and really loving it. And then just ended up on vacation with my parents, and we stumbled across this Celtic music happening at a festival, and I loved it. And I was like, I got to do that. And I give my parents a lot of credit because they sort of hauled me around, and we found instruments and built instruments, and no one I knew around there was doing anything like that. And so it was just this kind of like reading about this music and listening to it as much as possible. And um, I started playing the bagpipes of all things, and my grandma like made me an authentic kilt, and I played bagpipes for weddings and funerals and stuff, and got into Scottish music. And then we were at this other little festival, and I heard Breton music and saw some Breton dancing from the northwest corner of France. And then it was just all over. It was like I really was completely captivated by those tunes. There was definitely no one around there playing Breton music. And so I just found what I could, which was first the bagpipe lessons. And then I did find a group of people who were just jamming on like Celtic tunes. And they we were getting together and jamming, and they said, come play this contra dance. And I had no idea what they were talking about. And I went and just totally loved it. However, I was at the time I was kind of on a trajectory to go to college and study piano, and so this is probably a good time for that photo, Lindsay. I ended up like hardcore studying classical piano. Got a master's degree in piano performance. There is a photo from another lifetime. um, at this moment in time, I don't think I could play a Beethoven sonata to save my soul, but there I was. And in the midst of all that, I had gotten an undergraduate degree in music ed, and so I was working on learning band instruments because you have to do that. And my flute teacher happened to have an accordion in her house and knew I was interested in French music and Celtic music, and she just like handed me this accordion and said, "Here, take this home for a while." And I was like, "No, no, 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 no." I wanted nothing to do with it. And my grandmother had said, "Really, someone in the family should take up the accordion. It's like a lost art." And again, I was like, "No, no, no, like one of my cousins could do that, maybe, not me." But I accidentally fell in love with the accordion and was stubborn enough to finish my piano performance degree, but then was completely burned out and stopped playing the piano like for the next 12 years and only played accordion. I did start teaching. I taught full time elementary general music for a while, and I was trying to do gigs at the same time and just loving contra dancing, and then discovered English dancing, and it was all I wanted to do. And so I would teach all week. I was teaching little kids who require a lot of energy, and I would go to school and teach little kids all day on, all week. And Thursday I would take off right after school and go play a gig and get home at 2 in the morning, and then get up and teach the next day and then go off and play a whole weekend of gigs. And finally I was like, well, I can't, this is not sustainable. And so I took the leap and quit my job and started touring full time. And it was around that time that I met Susan at Ashokan, and we'll talk more about that together. But that was kind of the big game changer. Just everything changed, and was able to, we started collaborating and just got like super inspired to, write more music and get more and more into French music and French dancing. And then through all of that, I met Karen. Hi, Karen, you're out there, I think. And started playing more and more English and touring, and then ended up in a band with Becky Tracy. And that has been, this rich, amazing, wonderful thing for me. And that led to moving to Brattleboro, Vermont, and here we are with many, many, many gigs and tours and dances later. And I'm just so grateful for all of those things that led to this place.
And so much beautiful music. We had a couple people asking if there were musical parents or families in your backgrounds. Just a quick question. Yes, for Rachel. Susan?
You want to answer that, Susan, too?
My mother played the violin, and she was terrible at it,
Oh.
and gave it up after a few years, but she loved dancing. My dad, I am convinced, was a closet musician. He was literally a rocket scientist, so his energy went into that. But I think if he had put any effort into it, I think that's where the music comes from, was from my dad.
Mm.
Cool. That's great.
My family there's all kinds of organists and singers and many musicians in the family, but no one doing dance music or folk music at all.
Cool. Well, thank you. It was one of the questions that came up. And by the way, Karen is out there on Facebook.
Hi, Karen.
We're getting a few posts and things like that.
We love you, Karen.
We're going to move on to thing 3, and it's going to be both of you. And this is something new for me, so hopefully I'll do it correctly when I get you both up there live. But thing 3, how Susan and Rachel's worlds collided in the most wonderful way. And it is a wonderful way. So let's see if I can do this right. Light one and spotlight.
Here we are together.
Are you on top or are you on the bottom?
I'm over here.
We can't do the elbow thing on my screen, but I digress.
You're side by side for the recording.
We've been practicing this, which way to go to be able to high five or elbow bump.
Yeah. Okay. So our worlds collided. Rachel already gave it away at Ashokan at Northern Week. I'd been trying to make a French soiree happen there for a number of years, and there were restrictions around alcohol. But somehow Jay Younger got around that, and we decided one year we were going to have French wine and cheese, and we would have dancing and music. And so I knew somehow that Rachel was interested in this, and she put together, I think, a camper band. I don't think you were on staff at that point.
I think I was like that. That was maybe the year I was sort of part-time on staff. I remember you writing to me and saying, "Do you mind if I write to Jay and just borrow you for this class?" So that I played for your French singing class, and we put a French band class together. And
Yeah, so there's a big French component now at Ashokan. Maybe we can see those pictures now. I'll give you a little view into fiddle and dance camp at Ashokan in the beautiful Catskill Mountains.
oh, there it is. It feels like home. I think Jay and Molly might be out there with us tonight. And if you are, we love you guys and we're so grateful for everything you've done for us and all of that inspiration that has come from those experiences there.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Ashokan gave me both a husband and a best friend. Not bad.
We made out pretty well at Ashokan.
Yeah, I met my husband, Russ Berenberg, there about 20 years ago. And I guess I met Rachel a number of years after that. So yeah, anything else you want to say about Ashokan?
Well, I just remember like I was actually kind of aware that you were doing those soirees even kind of before we joined forces because I was really interested in the music and I know for a few years they were kind of informal and then we sort of formalized, oh, there's a soiree. Oh, it's such a fun party. Yeah, we just and it was so much fun to kind of to collaborate on figuring out how to teach French tunes and teach French songs and then putting together these parties with all this amazing dancing and singing and great energy and so I mean I do remember that week we also like the first week that we did all of that we sat around and played a bunch and that was like, oh, I want to do this. And so that I feel like that really launched us into collaborating in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, so really the path to English dance choreographies and tunes went through France. And a key moment in all of that was in 2014, it's been 6 years already. I had the opportunity to be the professor in residence at Vanderbilt in France, in Aix-en-Provence. And I invited lots of friends to come over. And we had this big old house we were living in, and it just seemed like a great opportunity for people to come and visit. I didn't have a very heavy teaching schedule, and Rachel actually took me up on it. And she came over, and
so much fun. It was an amazing trip.
Yeah. We got to eat lots of good food and visit French castles.
Yeah, we have photos to prove it too. So we have well, there was the French band photo I don't think that we showed yet from Ashokan. There we are having fun teaching French dances or French tunes.
There we go.
French castle. Lots of good meals.
Rachel has her first escargot.
Right.
Yeah. So it was, we've had opportunities too with Karen Axelrod to travel to France, and we were supposed to do another tour in May, and
Yeah,
unfortunately
that was a sad one to lose.
that didn't happen. But we were there 2 years ago, and we played a number of house concerts, and we did some dances, and just had these amazing exchanges with people over there. We're going to show you next a video that was put together by, some of you know Cécile, who I think has already spoken as part of the series, and Eric put together this montage of the concert that we did in Paris back in May 2018.
And it does kind of show the path. Like we've got a little English music in it, and a little French music, and a little French dancing. And Karen's there with us.
Le marinier qui m'y menait, qu'un en Écosse qui vole, il devint amoureux de moi, qu'un en Écosse qui volera.
I was just realizing, I don't know if people are familiar with French bal folk dancing. We should say a word about that before we have our little sample of the Scottish.
Yeah, so some of you probably already done some. It's crossing over the Atlantic, and French dancing is taking off. It's just a really great dance form for being particularly inviting, because a lot of the dances are pretty simple, can be easily picked up, and there's a huge range. I mean, we talk about French dancing. Well, there's all these different regions and all these different variations on dances, but they run the gamut from kind of beautiful, sultry couple dances to very spirited bourgeois from central France. But the clip we're going to show you now is a tune that Rachel wrote, which is a French Scottish.
Yeah, I that French influence like sneaks into my tunes, sort of, no matter what I do. So it's called Cheese Curds and Tamale, which doesn't sound so French, but it is a French Scottish.
He's not allowed to take questions about
No.
the title.
Oh, that's such a good memory.
Oh, I miss France so much. Well, as a thank you for my inviting her to come visit in France, Rachel wrote a tune for me called
Le Voyage de la Diabline.
Le Voyage de la Diabline. That's actually not it, but we'll talk about that in a second here. So yeah, it was this beautiful tune, and I actually remembered recently that I had written another English country dance before I wrote um, Trip to Provence, which is the dance that goes to Voyage de la Diabline. Um, but it was, I hadn't thought about it in years and years. I think Colin Hume actually brought it to my attention again.
Recently, right?
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and now I'm spacing on what it's called. I don't know, maybe Colin's out there, he can plug it in. But all of this to say was that I just, Rachel wrote this beautiful tune and it kind of spoke to me in a way that I hadn't been spoken to as a choreographer before, and decided to write a dance to it. So we'll listen, or we'll watch this video now that I hope I'm going in order here. Yeah, that
Can we tell them what the diabline is? 'Cause
Sure.
people
So
are always
the
asking about that.
diabline are, it sounds like a little devil, but what it's a reference to are these little electric vehicles that cart people around the center of Aix-en-Provence, which is a largely pedestrian area. So that's the only way that you can get around on wheels. And Rachel had just arrived from her transatlantic flight and was very tired. And so we decided to take a ride on the diabline.
It was the first thing that we did. It's like such a clear, wonderful memory of that trip because I was all jet lagged and miserable. And then I found Susan and we got on a little diabline and all of a sudden everything was wonderful. We were cruising around X
That's right.
looking at the beautiful fountains.
We tore through the streets of Aix-en-Provence
On a little golf
5 kilometers an hour. It was crazy.
We paid what 25 cents for it, and he said that like narration wasn't included or something like remember that? He
I
said
do.
no narration, just a ride.
So the dance, you're going to see footage. This comes from a dance in Richmond, Vermont a few years ago that Old World Charm School was playing for. So we'll just show you one round through of it. A lot of you have already danced it before. It's Rachel's beautiful waltz, and here it is. So how do ideas and adventures become tunes and dances? Is this thing for?
I think we're leading right into thing 4 with that.
How convenient.
Yes. Yes, I love when that happens. So once again, how ideas and adventures become tunes and dances is thing number 4.
Rachel.
Yeah, so following up a little bit on that trip to Provence thing, I think we just felt like this was so fun seeing this dance unfold, having these ideas that we had worked jointly on. And then it's pretty unforgettable. Like the first time we actually did the dance in a big hall full of dancers and like just watching it all unfold was really amazing. And so we just thought we should just do this. We should just write these tunes and dances together. So I could talk a little bit more about the tunes, and then Susan can tell you a little more about where the ideas come from for the choreography. But I mean, I think that a lot of the reason that this whole collaboration happened is because because she is really sort of my muse. Like I'm always sending her tunes, like emailing tune after tune after tune and my ideas. And so Susan being my sounding board then would often start saying, "Oh, this could be a dance," or "Oh, I have ideas." Like she would send me pictures of ideas like scribbled on a napkin in response to a tune. Um, so the sort of passing things back and forth, having a joint brain has has made that collaboration really sort of natural, consistent, fun part of this whole creative process. Um, so people are always asking like where tunes come from, where the ideas come from, how the process works. And I just want to tell you that it's not always pretty. And Lindsay has some pictures to prove that composition can sometimes be a little messy. So it might look it might look a little bit like this. That did turn into a tune. That is a contra dance jig that I sometimes play, and um, somehow I am able to make sense of that all that scribbling later on. And then there's another one, and this this is really when it gets crazy, where it's like ideas and arrows and scribbling things out, and that right there is the beginnings of the tune called The Muse, which is a tune that you'll hear at the end of our talk.
You won't want to miss it. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
It's actually an amazing.
so so tunes come sometimes, and I think a lot of people have this experience. People who write tunes, I mean, if you're a composer, it'd be fun. You could drop this in the chat, because we'll see the chat later, and you can say whether do you find that tunes come to you fully formed, or do they come in like little tiny ideas that then you have to develop. And for me, it's both. It's like sometimes I like wake up in the middle of the night and a tune's just there. um and actually that can be sort of annoying. It's like I was trying to sleep, or um during non-pandemic times, it's often like when I'm supposed to be packing my suitcase. Maybe it's a procrastination technique, I don't know. um but then other times they're like little nuggets of ideas. And for any of you out there who might be kind of toying with the idea of composing or writing tunes, um I'd suggest, one thing that I found is helpful is to just give yourself permission to like let that music happen in your head. And if you're out for a walk and you have like some little snippet of a tune that pops into your head, sing it into your phone. Like I have a zillion little voice memos of like little nuggets that may or may not become tunes. And so often there's like a little nugget like that, and it will kind of stick with me. And so I'll decide to go further with it, and then start tinkering with it and see what happens. For me, a lot of the process is about playing with the tune and experimenting with it, but also kind of walking away from it. And so if you're working on composition, that's always a good thing to try. Is like if you're kind of working on a tune and you don't know where to go with it, go take a walk and then see what's still coming in your head. Because I like to try to write what I want to hear, and sometimes it's easy to get into the mindset of like, I need to write this tune, I need to finish it, and you're just like writing something for the sake of getting something down. And so so I've tried to think about like what do I really want to hear happen next? Like what would I want to play? What would be fun to play? And so that's kind of a good test. I find also that tunes for me, and again, I'm curious about all of you out there in Zoom land, if how this works for you, but for me, tunes very, very often come from experiences, like the Diabline tune. Often it's like, some people like journal after going on a trip, and I usually write a tune. Or if you have like a significant life experience, like for me, writing a tune is a way to process it. And one other really big part of writing tunes for me is that they come often out of the inspiration of hearing what other people are doing. So, it's always good to kind of keep your ears open and listen to the inspiration that's just around you. And so my bandmates are the biggest inspirers of tunes, and so I often come home from playing with Susan, and then a tune just like happens because I have that sound in my mind, and I'm like writing something that I want to hear a clarinet on. And that happens oftentimes after gigs with Karen, where I just like hear this piano thing that I want to happen. And same thing with Becky, like all these people who are sort of part of my musical soul kind of bubble up in these tunes. Um, and then the other thing that happens sometimes is that I write sometimes for a purpose. And so, which I think has a connection with choreography too. Like for me, sometimes it's like, well, we really need some more jigs in this set list, and boy, it would be nice if we had an A minor jig to come out of this other C major jig. And so having like sometimes giving yourself parameters is a really good way, especially if you're having writer's block and you want ideas. Give yourself a framework. Say, I'm going to write a jig and it's going to be in A minor and it's going to be lively, and see if you can work with that. Or give yourself 5 notes to start with, or roll a dice and use the numbers to correspond to scale degrees, and then see if you can make something out of that. Sometimes it is possible to get in a rut. That definitely happens to me. And that's a way to get out of it, is to give yourself parameters. Or listening to a lot of different kinds of music is a really good way to kind of generate new ideas. And I also like to think about what makes a good dance tune. So lift, momentum, space, style. If you think about what things feel good to dance to. So those are all kind of things that I think about when I'm composing. And then inevitably I always say, Susan, I have this new tune. What do you think? And then sometimes she writes choreography. It's amazing.
So perhaps I'll talk about choreography now.
That's so convenient. Would you talk about choreography?
Yeah, I was.
What
thinking about-
happens when you're choreographing?
Well, I want to pick up on your point about nuggets. And I think that for me, every single dance I have written evolves from some particular figure that is triggered from me by the melody. What's coming to mind right now is actually my dance Bel Canto, which is a Dave Weisler tune. Dave kindly sent me like 4 or 5 tunes and said, do any of these strike you? And this one in particular really struck me. And there's a moment where all of the energy of the tune just builds. And I knew that had to be a moment where there was going to be a lead up and a line of 4. And so that was the starting place. And then it becomes this really fun puzzle where you're trying to figure out, well, how do I construct figures that will lead me there? So nuggets are important. The actual process of where I begin a lot of times writing dances to Rachel's tunes are, she'll plop music in front of me, we'll play it, and it gets in my ear, and I just start thinking of things that could work well with it. And I remember many nights in this kitchen where I sit right now trying to kind of figure out choreographies. Sometimes I can corral my husband into to being a dance buddy who will be there and help me sort of visualize it. It's hard with 2 people, and it's not any easier when you ask your dog to be part of the set.
Is he unwilling, or
that doesn't work very well. So it's this gradual process, and Rachel and I remember sitting at this very little island here where I am now. When we were, I was trying to figure out a choreography for, uh-oh,
Uh-oh.
tuning 3-2.
Or a dingo.
Or a dingo oasis.
Oh,
Okay,
good.
here's the picture that corresponds to the thought process. So there's the table.
Is that I always forget if that's a pig or a dog or a
It's a
bear.
corgi. You put it in your wine
Corgi.
bottle.
And he's a collar, right?
He's the
corgi.
collar. So that's the top of the set. This became a long ways dance. So we sat here trying to work this out. So that's, one of the things that you do when you don't have a group of people to be able to work out choreographies. I try as often as I can to get together with dance friends to try stuff out, and shout out to all my buddies in the Nashville country dancers who I will swirl away during the break at the contra dance into the adjacent room and say, I just need you for 5 minutes. And then 40 minutes later, we've figured something out. Yeah, so writing a dance, it involves, it's not just about me writing the dance. It's about those people who help with it. It's also, I often will communicate with other choreographers and dancers and dance callers that I know. Joseph Pimentel has just been an angel as far as giving me feedback on dances, saving one of my dances, Borodingo, in fact, from the
Borodingo.
country dance dustbin.
Oh, that's a really sad thought.
Yeah, the first time I taught it was in Houston, and he was there, and I didn't even realize that how hard a dance it was. And I taught it, and they danced it, and it just looked awful. And I thought,
we're like, are those 6 counts up too much?
yeah, I didn't think it was a good dance. And he came up during the break, and he was like, I love the dance. But it took some tweaking, and so he was really instrumental with that. Brad Foster too has been super great about giving me feedback on dances, and others as well. So it's a gradual process. It requires a whole lot of going back to the drawing board, and sometimes it's throwing away dances.
I do that with tunes too. Throw them away.
Ooh, but pretty much everything you write is good.
That's because I've already thrown away all the bad stuff.
You're so prodigious. We have this joke every time that Rachel puts new music in front of us. Karen and I will read it through and love it, and we'll say, another dud.
But the thing is, there are duds. They're just in the dustbin of, what did you say? In the dustbin of English country dance history.
Exactly. So we're going to show you another video now, and this is my way of trying to show you how dances evolve. And this is a dance of mine called the Movable Feast. I wanted to write a dance that incorporated the figure from St. Catherine, which is not a particularly well-known dance. The figure that I wanted to include is one where everyone, it's a long way set, passes through the set. So you're not holding hands, you pass through, turn to face your partner who you just pass through across with, and then you fall back. And there's a series of 2 of those. And I love that. But I wasn't ever really that thrilled with the dance and really didn't like the tune very much. So I thought, well, I have this great tune from Rachel, and I want to try to use that figure somehow. So the first incarnation of the dance that I wrote, I think worked pretty well. I think the pass-throughs, which you'll see in a second here, there were too many of them. Gary Rudman, in fact, looked it over and suggested reducing them. And in fact, I did that, and we'll see that in the second video we look at. I also felt like the dance ended up being a little bit too difficult. There at the very end of the dance, you'll see there's a meanwhile figure. And if you've got really good dancers, it's going to work fine, but it's, you've got to have perfect conditions really for it to work. But anyway, here's the first incarnation of A Movable Feast. Thank you. So, you know, it works. It's a nice dance. And just in terms of where those figures came from, I mean, all of this stuff, all the choreographies we come up with, let's face it, people who write dances, you're just borrowing stuff from other places. If you're coming up with something really original, it might actually not be very good. What I mean by this, I remember hearing a chef once who was interviewed, and somebody said something like, well, or he said something like, if it hasn't already been done, then it probably shouldn't have been done. Because after all of these years of culinary history, you can mess with the stuff that's out there, but if you're trying to come up with something completely novel, it might not be the best. So as you were looking at that, you probably could identify who I ripped off. So there's a little bit of Fandango in there. There's a little bit of St. Margaret's Hill, but they're camouflaged because, right, you've got this other very different kind of tune that's going. So let's look at the second clip now, and this is the revised version that has fewer pass-throughs. It's a less complicated dance. It's still not easy. And what you're going to see is footage from a dance in Atlanta a couple of years back with a very mixed crowd. And they got through it. Maybe not the best programming that night, but I really, really wanted to teach it and we wanted to play it. So we went for it. So anyway, here is the now what I think of as finished version.
At the top right hands once around, tuck in and cast in the twos lead up. Once pass your partner right, go left and up, lady down. Work 2 lines of 3, fall backwards, come forward again. All drop hands, pass through, fall back. One's leap out to the right, the other's face in, balance the wave. Right hand turn 3/4, one's pass left in the middle, hook around 1 to the left you go, to a middle of a line, all back to back. Ready at the top, last chance, right hand turn.
Okay. So there you have it. I know it went by fast, but I hope that gives you enough of a sense of how the dance changed over time. I think we're going to move to the last video next, which is called the Peridot Ring. Rachel wrote the tune. You want to explain where the idea for the tune came from?
Yeah, the tune was I wrote the tune for my friends Leah and Bob, who got engaged at my very first trio gig with Eloise and Company, my band with Becky Tracy, and we were playing the Syracuse Contra prom, and later found out that Leah and Bob had gotten engaged, and the ring was a peridot ring.
Right. So I love this tune as soon as I heard it. It was a few days before heading off to Northern Week at Ashokan, and I was thinking, I really need a dance that does a variety of things. First night at camp, you know, everybody's having their seeing each other who they haven't seen for a year or so, and so there's not, you know,
Very distracted.
very distracted. But also it's a chance to be able to introduce people to perhaps a dance form they haven't done before. You may have people who've never done English. So what I usually do on the first night at Northern Week is to do kind of a quick, it's almost like a drill. That sounds unpleasant, but it's not. It's sort of a super quick, here are the figures, let's get the music due and dance this series of figures so people understand the vocabulary, what setting is, what siding is. And then I needed a second dance, and I really wanted it to be a set dance that would use some of those figures. And so what I came up with was the Peridot Ring. The first version of it, I think, had an up a double and back twice, and realized that, oh, you know, I could do something more with this. And so you'll see when the video starts that you lead up a double, fall back, and then you face down, lead down, and fall back. those are the kinds of things I think in dance choreography that that can be just slightly different from what you would expect, that make the dance memorable, but not memorable in a way that feels like you're trying too hard. It just adds a little bit more interest to it. So we'll go ahead and roll this. So this is the peridot ring, and I think this is the first time we tried it out, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there it is, that peridot ring. I think in the interest of time, we were going to show that again, but I think it would be best for us to move on. There actually is one more video, and that is to a tune that Rachel wrote called Moonflower, and my dance bears the same name. Sometimes tunes, just like, sometimes dances, just like tunes, are prompted by personal events. Rachel's friends getting married. What the story behind Moonflower is, 4 years ago, I believe it was the first Tuesday in November 2016, and I was having a very, very bad night, and was feeling quite a sense of sadness and despair. And I found a picture that night of a moonflower from my garden here in Nashville, that was beautiful, and I sent it to Rachel, and you know, at that point it was November and all of the moonflowers were already gone. They were dead, but we had this picture and it felt hopeful to me, so I sent it to her. She wrote the tune pretty quickly, and then I wrote the dance, and it's one of the few dances that I felt like kind of was almost fully hatched. So let's have a look at Moonflower. My goal in writing that dance was to keep it simple. I thought of the dance Alice, which shows up on so many programs, has a really important function in being a beautiful waltz time dance and one that everybody can do. And so I wanted another dance like that in my repertoire. I think, though, writing it was very much informed by wanting to have a dance that where you connect with everybody in the set.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens. So it seems like that was a good one. We did okay with that collaboration.
It didn't suck. So I think we're getting...
No, not at all. It's an amazing. I had written it's a perfect blend of
Mhm.
music and dance. So thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we're at thing 5, and obviously because we have a couple people on tonight, we're running a little bit late, but that's okay with everyone, I'm sure. So this is
That's what we do best.
Yeah, run out of time. It's true.
We can take a little extra time. Thing 5, how our story ends with a look into the future of more musical adventures and a book and a CD and some announcements. At the end of that, we're going to post a bunch of things that you can drop into and get more of Susan and Rachel with. Okay, here we go.
Oh, so it's I just like seeing that dance clip is so nostalgic because that was just last summer. It feels so far away. Summer 2019. And we really miss all of you. So we want to say a big thank you to Darlene and Lindsay and the whole team for keeping this dance tradition alive during this time when it's hard to figure out how to do that, and also for giving us an excuse to think about this stuff and to talk about this project and think about this project and to hang out on Zoom. It's been really fun. And they are remarkably organized, Darlene, Lindsay, and the whole team. It's just been amazing to work with them.
I'm gonna cry tomorrow when I have my 3 Zoom classes with
And
my
Lindsay's
girls.
not there to
I
make
have
things
to
pop
do it.
up.
Oh my God. Ah.
So music and dance for us and for a lot of you, I'm sure, is way more than just music and dance. It's it's a community. It's our friends. It's travel. It's just like all these experiences. And so we're holding on to that as best we can right now, and missing all of you, and really looking forward to the time when we can get back on the road. And we were thinking about some of the amazing experiences we've had on the road, like staying with people. And I'm sure a lot of you who are out there right now are people we've stayed with in your houses. Like, we've been offered such amazing hospitality over the years. And so yeah, music and dance has given us great adventures. And one of the adventures that we're most excited about for the future is we have this collection of dances. Now we're up to like 13 of them, 12 or 13, something like that. We keep losing count. And the plan is to publish a book that has the dance instructions and the tunes, and then to have a companion recording that goes along with it. So we're really excited about that. And we hope that you'll keep an eye out and watch for that to happen. Yeah, we're really glad that you all joined us tonight. It was really special to have you here. You want
Yes.
to add anything?
like Rachel says.
we share a brain, so it's all the same. It's all the same stuff, right?
Yeah. And if we didn't, then we'd only have half a brain each. And
It's true, that would kind of be a drag. So yeah, thank you, Darlene and Lindsay and the whole team. You are all so amazing. This is such a cool project.
it is really amazing.
Well, I have to always say it's always a thrill to get to know everyone. I'm a big fangirl. I had this moment during the last tech rehearsal where you guys didn't know this, but I was a little weepy because your dances and music is so beautiful. So I'm a big fangirl. So I love it. I'm
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you
do.
appreciate it. I'm glad everyone appreciates it, but no one appreciates it more than me, maybe. How about that? And I have a great team to work with. We are going to post a lot of stuff that Rachel and Susan have coming up. I'm not going to list it for the sake of time. I am going to say thank you to Rachel and Susan so much, and thank you for coming into the after talk in just a few minutes so we can get all these many questions, some really good questions out there. So I hope you're all going to join us because we didn't have time to answer them. Now everybody's going to be shouting at me if I don't ask you, what's your favorite dance?
This is hard.
Oh, are you asking me?
Question should be
Asking
for
both
you.
of you. So
You answer that one.
Yeah, St. Margaret's Hill.
Ah.
It's such an exquisite tune, and the tune itself has many moods in it, and the figures are complemented by it. And it's one of those dances where you as a dancer rise to the occasion and dance it beautifully.
What
That's
about
all.
you, Rachel? Do you have a favorite dance?
That's hard. I
All
don't
right.
know.
How
Am I allowed
about
to say favorite tune? Is that
that's what I was going to say. What I love to know is, what's that tune that brings you joy when you hear it or play it? That just gives you a little thrill. Both of you.
the one that I'm always wishing for? On Karen will say that I'm always wanting this on every single ball program that I ever play on, and that's Bar a Bar. I think it's just so exquisitely beautiful.
Yeah, I concur. I concur. I I have to say, this might sound self-serving, but I'm so happy when I get to play for dances and Rachel's tunes are on the programs because none of them are duds. I mean, there's
Oh.
so many of them, and they're so much fun to play.
Yeah. Well, I agree.
I
I,
perceive.
All right, so let me take a few minutes and I'm going to say bye and thank you. We're going to put up the donation screen. We're going to play out. But first, let me tell you all a few things that are coming up. Next week on the 5 things, it's going to be Jean Morrow. So we're really looking forward to having Jean. Thank you to Colin Hume for maintaining an accessible index of all our web chats on his website, so you can go there. We now have 31 plus this one folks who have done 5 Things Talks over the last 6 months. So, and a big thank you to everybody who's been sending donations because it really does help with the operating costs. We really appreciate it. The After Talk link is posted. I also want to make you alert to this third Saturday, October 17th, we have another, what I call Homeboys, Walter Nelson. If it was not for Walter Nelson, our group would not be doing historical dancing. It is directly because of Walter Nelson that so many of us in Southern California got involved in dance. So that is a third Saturday historical dance talk. It's great for English country dancers too. There's always really interesting stuff going on. So we're posting the information for that. Coming Saturday, November 7th, Rebecca King is going to do a Music 101 for dancers. So a lot of us, you all are musicians, a lot of us aren't, and it's going to help. So we hope we'll see some of you there, and also musicians can come and play along. Rebecca's going to make sure you have the music for that. So information is posted about that. And for donations, we're going to put up the screen. To support the work that Rachel and Susan do, please consider making a donation for them. And they'll probably talk about it they talked about it here. They'll probably talk about it more in the After Talk. They love Ashokan, and they're going to donate a portion of anything that comes in to keep dance camps alive at Ashokan. We need to make sure everybody's thriving during this time. So our exit music is The Muse. The composer is Rachel Bell. Musicians Karen Axelrod, Susan Kevra, and Rachel Bell. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been wonderful, and I just can't wait to just listen to the beautiful music on the way out. So we'll see you all in the After Talk in 2 minutes. Bye.